Hi everybody. I really wanted to say thank you for the great feedback that I got on the polyvagal theory video that I did. And I'm sorry it's been a little while since I've responded. I've been crazy busy trying to sell my house. A little bit of stress, like we see here when we discuss trauma. So I'm going to review the Polyvagal chart here again one more time, just for some cohesiveness with this presentation. And then I'll talk about trauma release exercise a little bit as well. This bell curve chart was created with polyvagal theory and how it applies to TRE in mind. So what we're trying to understand more these days in treating trauma is seeing that it's a physiological impact. It's been looked at as a psychological impact for way too long. And, you know, left untreated, there can be psychological issues that come along with it. But basically, we are embodied creatures, and things that happen to us impact our nervous system. And when the nervous system is impacted without the ability to process the trauma or, you know, the bullying, stress, tension, whatever it is, when it keeps compounding, then it starts to become maladaptive, pathological. So this is where, you know, you'll see people that go to therapy for years and they try all these different things and it doesn't work in terms of, you know, like a real life-changing experience, because it's not addressing the somatic impact, the way that trauma hits us at our core, in the nervous system, in our muscles, and in our patterning. And when, again, like when that goes on too long, then it starts to develop into mental health issues. So we have our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system. Most people understand the sympathetic nervous system. This is, you know, just what keeps us moving. It's where we are empowered in life. And when you're looking at it from a trauma or stress or tension perspective, this is where we're going to have fight, flight. We're going to deal with everything from, you know, the lower end of that bell curve with the anxiety, concern, worry, irritation, frustration, escalating up into panic and rage. And for most people, if that whatever is impacting can't be resolved, then they'll eventually move up into a freeze state. This can be with an individual event. This can be with, you know, ongoing, prolonged stress and trauma. One of the examples that I like to give with the freeze state and why it's so difficult for people to calm back down is that in order to thaw, they have to go through the panic and rage. So let's say you're at a, you know, you've just been in the ER as a doctor, you know, dealing with horrific things, and then you get off and you have to go back home and you're just like trying to live your life normally around people that are not experiencing the kind of things that you're being exposed to. A lot of times people will use drugs and alcohol to cope with the kind of stuff that they're seeing there. Or they're in, you know, a functioning freeze state. I spent a lot of years in a functioning freeze state. I was super, super duper effective and able to do things that I needed to do in my life, but I wasn't in my body. I was just in constant autopilot because I had learned how to survive in a freeze state. So, you know, say you come home from that shift at work and you have to put on your happy face, and you can't really do that without down-regulating. And you can't down-regulate in front of your children, you know, or your spouse or your dog or whatever it is. You know, there has to be a safe containment, and if you don't have that, then you continue to just limp through life in that kind of fog of a freeze state, feeling trapped and dissociated. So what TRE does, on the chart there, we're looking at that little sin wave between freeze and fight flight. The practice of TRE, and I as the provider come in and provide some containment around the intensity of those feelings. And over time, when you do trauma release exercise, you can do it on your own once you've learned how to do that for yourself. And people that don't have like prolonged trauma, they can do that. That's the difference between people that have, just certain issues in life that are stressful that we all have, and somebody that has, a really heightened shock trauma kind of situation where they had a sudden car accident or a death in the family that dysregulates the nervous system for a short period of time. And if they get treatment, usually they have better outcomes for recovery. For people that have early childhood trauma, whether that's birth trauma, medical intervention, childhood cancer, abuse, sexual, physical, emotional, witnessing abuse, those sorts of things, then you've got developmental trauma, and you're talking about something that's going to be a little bit more difficult to deal with. And these things are assaulting the nervous system at such a rapid pace that it doesn't give the body, mind, soul, a chance to recover. So on my MeWe page and in the videos section here, I'm going to put a link to a video of how the tremor response happens in the body of an Impala. Some of you have seen the video already, but you might want to pause and go look at it. But basically what's happening in this video, and there's no blood, so don't worry, the animal gets away, everything's fine. It's just an incredible demonstration of how this downregulation works. So at the beginning of the video, you see this Impala in a complete freeze state, totally immobilized, ready for death, and a cheetah on top of it, right, playing with its food. The video progresses a little bit, and some other predators come and chase the cheetah off, and the Impala is left on its own. And in the video, you can watch it go from being in a complete freeze, like you would see a fainting goat, like that, just rigor mortis kind of thing, to slowly the abdomen and chest start to expand and contract. The breathing comes back. They're down regulating through that polyvagal bell curve from a freeze state into the fight flight. So for a few minutes you watch this animal thaw and kind of come to, and the senses start to come back online, and then it pops up and starts to shake violently. And this shaking mechanism is what we work on stimulating in trauma release exercise. So you watch this animal release all of the tension, stress, endorphins, muscular contractions that it just went through when it was in a position of dying, to now it's okay, and it pops up and runs off into the woods, right? So we're designed to do that too, but it's socialized out of us. How many times have you been told as a child to stop crying, or when you're shaking, someone wants to stop you from being afraid. Women report after they have babies sometimes continuing to shake after the baby's born, because their body's just been through something so intense. They're not cold. It's not a shiver response in a typical way. It's the body letting go of the trauma and stress that it just went through. And if we were able to do that, and there was some space to breathe in between the hits that come at you in life, then it wouldn't somatize, it wouldn't become a pathology in the body that would compound into, high levels of complex post-traumatic stress. So let me see if I can gather my thoughts here. So that's the process of TRE. What happened there was the guy that created it, David Berceli, he spent a lot of time in war-torn areas in like Yemen and the Sudan. And he noticed one night when he laid down to go to sleep after some particularly violent situations during the day and bombings, that he was too tired to stop his body from shaking. He fell asleep and he felt better in the morning when he woke up, and that got him curious. He also noticed how adults would hold tension and stress patterns in their bodies after a bombing, and it would last longer than children would kind of recover from it and be more resilient. So he created these exercises. The exercises are designed to bring about stimulation in the 10th cranial nerve that causes this shaking mechanism that you see in the video with the Impala, right? So the exercises can be modified for any body type, any kind of limited mobility, and it's safe and effective, but it really needs to be applied by initially somebody that's got certification, that knows how to provide what we call containment. So when you're going through that intense down regulation and it's scary and it overwhelms the nervous system, there's somebody there to provide containment for you. That could be helping you understand the process. That could be encouraging you to take breaks, to get out of your head and just feel your feelings. And once the tremor mechanism is stimulated after you do these exercises, the average tremor time is about 15 minutes. And then there's a integration period, which is really important, just to kind of be with the body after it stops shaking and let the process integrate and marinate. Then in a typical session, I would have the person come to sitting and we review what they experienced on the mat. Typically, if you've got a shock trauma or you've got a pretty regulated nervous system and you just want to do this to, reduce your stress levels, a lot of people use it in sports. I've seen girls' volleyball teams learn it. They'll just have a hard practice and then they'll drop down and do some shaking to shake off the tension. So it doesn't have to be like this thing that you're always using to get into the darker side of trauma or, bringing up memories. You don't have to remember anything with this. A lot of the trauma approaches require you to relive the story or tell the story while you're doing tapping movements on the body or eye movements to kind of numb yourself to the impact of it. Which, if people get relief from that, that's fine. But for me, I would rather just address what's going on in the body. And if you have trauma that happened before you were pre-verbal, or you had trauma that happened while you were blacked out, or you were out of your body, you're not going to remember details. So you don't have to relive any of this stuff on the mat. If things come up, then we'll deal with them. But I've never had any kind of flashback about abuse in childhood or anything like that come up when I'm doing TRE. But if people do get overwhelmed with it, then that's why they need to do a few sessions, especially if they've got developmental trauma, to learn how to go slower, to pay more attention to how their body works, to see what sets them off. Typically, a person would practice this 3 times a week. And again, once you learn how to self-containment, it's something you can do on your own. I'll also put a link in this video to traumaprevention.com, which is the TRE International site, so you can watch some videos or get some references for books, see what other people are doing, learn more about it. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit now, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. But if you have specific questions that you would like answered, feel free to drop them in comments, or if you'd want to do it in private, you can catch me on MeWe. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I love to talk about this subject. I could talk about it all day long. And I think it's something that we really need right now, because even if we're not being hugely impacted by what's going on in the world right now, which I don't know how you couldn't be, but if you're still living a pretty good life and trying to not fall for all of the pitfalls of this insanity, it's still having an impact on you. And you're storing a lot more tension and stress in your body than you think. So this is a really easy, effective way to work with the body and learn more about your nervous system responses and go a lot easier on yourself. For me personally, learning that this was a somatic thing that happened to me, because I spent a lot of, like 40 years in complex post-traumatic stress, so finding something that actually freed me from having startle responses at any given time was just utterly life-changing. So it's an incredibly easy tool to use once you learn the basics and you learn how to sort of navigate whatever challenges are coming up for you. So again, feel free to hit me up with any questions, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. All the best.